Hey, good morning and welcome to Breakthrough Walls. My name's Ken Walls and I'm your host. And today I have an absolutely unbelievable guest on, Dr. Jeffrey Fannin. And wait until you guys hear his story. You're not going to believe it. So hang tight. We'll be right back. And we are back. Let me bring Dr. Fannin on. Dr. Fannin, welcome to the show.
Ken, thank you for having me. I really appreciate being here.
I'm excited that you're on. I'm not sure that a lot of the audience knows your background exactly, but I know a little bit about it, and it is mind-blowing. So I'm excited for you to come on and tell your story. I started this about 2.5 years ago. I've interviewed over 300 celebrities and entrepreneurs, and I think it's amazing the healing that occurs for people when they hear other people's stories about how they overcome the hard times, So why don't we start with, talking a little bit about where you were born and raised. I know you spent years working with Dr. Joe Dispenza, right?
Right. Yeah, we traveled together for almost 5 years.
Okay. Wow. So where did it all begin for you?
Well, I was born in Salmon, Idaho. And so we left there when I was about 2 years old. So I don't remember really any of that except for when my dad went back to a high school reunion. And so I really had very little knowledge about where I was born. But I grew up in a lot of my growing up years in Salt Lake City. And, then after I got out of high school, then that's kind of when I began to travel the world to do things, and was in the Air Force for 4.5 years, traveling around the world. And for a little bit of time, I was what's called a weapons intercept controller. And so I would control airplanes. And then because of my background in television, because I worked for a while at WGN TV in Chicago, back in the early 70s. And so because of that background, they transferred me into the Armed Forces Network while I was in the Air Force. And so I traveled all over Europe doing Air Force Now films and things like that.
Wow.
And doing all kinds of major television things. So after that, I came home, got my undergraduate degree in mass communications at the University of Utah. And then from there, while I was in Germany, I was involved in an aero club. And the aero club, I got my pilot's license. And so then I began to fly people that would come to visit me when I was stationed in Germany, up and down the Rhine River, looking at castles. Or I'd say, hey, you want to go to France for lunch? And so that we would fly to France, which sounds like a big deal, but it's not. It was only 20 minutes away. So if they would rent the airplane back then you could rent a Cessna 172 for about $13 an hour wet, meaning that including fuel. And so nowadays you couldn't do that. Kind of worked after that, got back to the States and got my multi-engine rating and airline pilot rating and things like that. So then I went on to fly Lake Powell Air Service, doing Grand Canyon tours, Lake Powell, Monument Valley, a lot of working my way up to the airlines, and then flew for US Air for a number of years till I started having layoffs. So I was based at LAX in Los Angeles, living here in Phoenix. Now, I know a lot of people will commute an hour to work, get in their car and drive to work, but I would commute by airplane. So I spent a lot of time in the seat of the cockpit of an airplane.
Wow.
So, and sometimes if they had a seat open, you get to look out and sit in the back with the real folks. So
Wow.
from there, then I really what I wanted to do was I wanted to be an astronaut. And so back when a lot of this was hot and heavy, and my cousin was a former governor and senator of Arizona, Paul Fannin. And so he got me an appointment to the Air Force Academy before I went in the military. And I was thinking I was going to go that direction and want to be an astronaut. And so then when the Vietnam War got hot and heavy, and I was stationed in Germany, and I was scheduled to go to Vietnam, and I really didn't want to go there, but the Vietnam War ended 2 weeks before I was scheduled to go. And so because I was at a remote site in Cold Bay, Alaska, where the peninsula comes down before the Aleutian Islands, the last spot is called Cold Bay, and it's named Cold Bay for a reason. I think the coldest it ever got while I was there for a year was a minus 73 degrees Fahrenheit.
That's cold.
Yeah, that's cold. They wouldn't let it go outside then. But I did my tour there because I was at a remote site, and they let me have my duty station of choice. So I said, I'm going to Europe. So I put in for Germany and became a weapons intercept controller in Germany the rest of the time. So I traveled all over Germany doing that for about a year. And then the Air Force was starting to have an identity crisis, and they wanted to have people that knew something about television help them out. So that's how I got into the Armed Forces Television Network. I spent the rest of my time traveling around Europe doing films and just having all kinds of fun.
What was that in the 70s then?
Yeah, that was in the 70s. I went in the Air Force in 1972, and I got out in 1976. So I got out on Bicentennial Weekend in Philadelphia. So
my brother-in-law flew F-4s in the Air Force, and my nephew flew F-16s in the Air Force, and now he flies for Delta.
Oh, yeah. And I remember when the F-4 and the F-16 were transitioning over, because I was stationed at Ramstein Air Base at the Armed Forces Network there. And they had an F-4 and an F-16 lined up on the runway. And this was when they were just going around doing air shows. And the F-4 would start rolling, and he would get about halfway down the runway before the F-16. And I would be up on the tower, filming this. Yeah. And then the F-4 would take off, and the F-16 would just go straight out. It was really
but that F-4 was they called it the flying trash can. It was so loud.
Yeah, it was. So that's kind of nice that I got to experience some of that and travel around Europe and make some different films. And we decided we were going to try and be very audacious. How audacious could we be? And so we would go to like England, and we go to the base commander and say, we'll put you on film, and you can tell about whatever you want. And that was a big ego deal for them. And then we would say, what we need is a cherry pick, one of these things that like they fix telephone poles with. And we put the camera in there and get it up above the runway, and then film these, F-111s coming up and spreading their wings and doing touches and goes. We'd burn $1 million worth of fuel, just in an afternoon of doing stuff like that. But then we would travel all over Europe talking about these films that we made. So it gave me quite a bit of experience. And then because of my television background before I went in the service, got me into the Armed Forces Network. And so then I was able to do that. But then when they started having the reduction in force, and this was back in the early 70s and things. So I didn't have as many hours of my logbook as I wanted to have, because I started flying for Lake Powell Air Service and flying in the Grand Canyon, Lake Powell, Monument Valley, flew fire attack for the Forest Service, get up and drone around in forest fires for a while. And that gave me enough hours to get on with U.S. Air. And so then got there, and Then they started having more and more layoffs and reduction in force in the military and things like that, where I have over 6,000 hours of my logbook, which should get you anywhere in the world, because there were so many pilots that were out there, airlines that were going out of business. Even with 6,000 hours, I couldn't even get an interview. So that's when I decided, well, my seniority number was like in the middle of the seniority stack. So I decided I was going to go back to school, and I because the brain and how we function was very important to me. So when I was flying, a lot of people would bid to fly with me because they said it's like going to a Tony Robbins seminar in the cockpit.
Well, and I, you know, what I find interesting is, because again, I don't think most people watching realize who you are. Some people do. I know Sherry Gideons probably knows who you are. Well, you guys are friends.
Yeah. Well, we are working together now. So we are putting programs together, because before I even knew Sherry, she had written a book about the brain and thinking, just like I did. And so we have a lot of conversations, you know, on a very frequent basis. And so now we're working together and developing some programs that are really going to be very, very helpful for people in getting rid of subconscious beliefs and making a personal transformation for themselves.
I think that I mean, here's what I find interesting is, like, you're one of the world's leading, what's the title? Neuroscientist?
Yeah, neuroscientist.
Yeah. And
I didn't know what to call myself, you know.
But it has nothing to do with flying airplanes.
Well, like, and that's what the universe decided was going to shift my course. Let me go play with airplanes for a while, because I do love to fly.
Yeah.
And so when they started having this reduction in force, and I couldn't get an interview, well, that's when I decided to go back and get my PhD in psychology, and that started me down this path, you know, and learning brain mapping and doing a bunch of trainings and working with thousands of people, which then led me to being connected up with Dr. Joe Dispenza and traveling the world, and, you know, doing over 4,000 brain maps on people who meditate. And the one thing I learned about that is, one, most people have no idea how to meditate, and two, they really don't know how to deal with some of these issues that are in their brain map. So being able to measure these things made a huge difference. And so now I have some people coming over. One woman driving over from San Diego today, and she does channeling. And so we're not only going to do her brain map, but we're going to map her doing channeling, if people know what channeling is all about. And that's been a hobby of mine for years, being able to brain map people who have that are intuitive, they're clairvoyant. And I was actually in a movie called PGS, Your Personal Guidance System, Intuition. And so
what's it called again, the movie?
PGS, Personal Guidance System, Intuition. You can find it on Vimeo. And so I'm a neuroscientist in there that explains how intuition works. And so some of the equipment that I have that we're going to be using today on her, and I also have another doctor that I'm starting to train today. She's sitting right across the desk from me here, and Dr. Carol Whittle, and she's here to learn brain mapping and learning how to do all of these things. And so we're very excited. I also have equipment where I can measure a person's chakras, their energy field, see what the alignment is, and then help people get that alignment back if they're out of alignment, and dealing with the coherence. So on my website and a number of places, I have research things that I've done in helping people change, you know, getting rid of focus concentration issues or subconscious belief patterns or things like that. I had, you know, somebody I was working with yesterday online, getting rid of a subconscious belief pattern of theirs, you know, that goes way back to childhood. Because when we look at those kinds of issues from the third trimester of when we are being conceived all the way up to 7 or 8, we're actually taking in how the world works, learning from our parents, our teachers, our friends. And we really have no filters because our brain is basically recording everything in delta and theta. And so as we get older and we don't realize, what has actually happened. So we have a belief and we also have a meaning to that belief that we apply to it. And then we add some emotion, and that's called a cognition. That gets bound together with a neurotransmitter that we call acetylcholine. And so it's kind of like when you hear a song and it takes you way back when you have feelings about that sort of thing. And that's what happened. So as we get older and subconscious belief is only a thought that we have over and over and over again, that gets recorded in our subconscious system. So basically, 95% of the things that we say, think, and do today are coming from our subconscious and our experience. And it goes up to our conscious mind, and the conscious mind just executes whatever the rules are that are recorded as our subconscious beliefs. What a lot of people do not realize is that you can change those beliefs. There's a whole physiological aspect we go through in helping people. And so when you have all these subconscious beliefs and you want to know what's on your subconscious belief window, all you have to do is look at your behavior, because your behavior is guided by what's written on your subconscious belief pattern. So if you want to be more powerful, more thoughtful, more whatever happens, and this is why one of the reasons why we look at the chakra centers and look at the heart chakra in particular. So there are three electromagnetic centers that are the most important. One is the electromagnetic center around your chakras, and then the second one is the electromagnetic center around your heart, and the third one is the electromagnetic center around your brain. Now, there's this vagus nerve where the energy and information from our heart goes to the brain, and then it causes this electrochemical stuff to be manufactured, and then we feel whatever the emotion is.
So Laura asks a question. She's a nurse practitioner, and she deals with 100% of her patients are in nursing care facilities. She deals a lot with dementia patients. And she's asking, do you believe in the elements, for example, crystals and realignment of chakras, or do you believe mindset and cognitive behavioral therapy is more productive?
Both of them can be used. So, sometimes you can get some movement, but what we're really talking about is when we have that cognition, it's about causing another burst of acetylcholine to remove the cognition, or the emotion rather. And so it's not going to get rid of the memory, but you have no emotion or feeling about that. And so now you're able to change. So in our subconscious, we may have a subconscious belief. Let's just take money, for example. I want more money. I want more money. I want more money. And so cognitively, we are thinking about that. That's what our conscious brain is doing. But our subconscious belief may have a belief in there, you don't deserve more money. And so that's what's literally being broadcast out into the field. And so that's what's coming back at us. You don't deserve more money. So are you going to be able to use that law of attraction in order to attract what it is that you want? So there are specific things. A lot of people have this roller coaster ride up and down. So if I can get a little geeky here for just a second.
By the way, I told you I love this. And
I know.
Before you get geeky on that, let me ask you this question, if I may.
Sure.
You just brought up a perfect example of, somebody. You ask anybody, hey, would you want, if I gave you $1 million, would you want it? And I would say, unless you're an absolute idiot, most people would say, of course, yes, I'd love $1 million, right? So people are walking around, I want more money, I want more money. But like you just said, subconsciously, there's something else going on that's preventing that from happening. How do you change that person's subconscious belief system. Tony Robbins talks about that, right? The belief
Yeah,
system.
yeah, that's a really great question. And so, Ken, there are lots of different methodologies that can allow that to occur. And we know how successful Tony Robbins has been in
Yeah.
being able to change these beliefs. But basically, what you have to do is change the nature of that cognition. So if you're saying, I want more money, or whatever it is, and you have these beliefs, you have to find a way to change those. So when, let's take one example. The guy that I was working with yesterday, yesterday, and he had something that went way back from his early school years, and he felt like he was not smart, and that he was not good enough. And so being able to change that from I'm not good enough to I choose to be happy. So that every time, so let's go back to the overall process. So let's say you have an experience in life, that you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and you have a song, and every time you hear that song, you have memories and feelings about that particular situation.
Yep.
So later on in life, you no longer have this girlfriend or boyfriend, but every time you hear this song, now the mood has changed from something good to what it means with that experience. And so maybe you have something that's going on. So let's suppose that you're walking down the mall, and they're playing music up overhead. You're not even paying attention to it. And many years have gone by. So all of a sudden a song comes on. You're not paying attention to it cognitively, but your subconscious is hearing that song. So it triggers whatever the emotion is with that. And now all of a sudden maybe you're not feeling so good, but you don't know why. So this is about changing whatever that belief is. So I'll go through a process with people. First of all, we have to get down to what is the belief. In the case of this gentleman I was working with yesterday, is I'm not good enough. Now that came from the family that he grew up in, of you're not good enough, and so the questioning and stuff. So it's a thought he had over and over and over again through many years of his life, that got rooted in his subconscious. Then every time he has a feeling about I'm not good enough, or somebody questions him, or and there are one of the things I wrote in something I put together with Sherry Gideons. We wrote this book, and part of it is about the 7 lies or myths that most people subscribe to, and one of them is that the criticism of others matters. And so when somebody criticizes us, it triggers that, and he begins to feel I'm not good enough. Now, that subconscious belief got there, probably from parents, friends, whatever. However, he begins to perceive the world, so he has to change his perception. So as we're doing that in changing the perception, we have to work with the neural aspects of what goes on. So one of the things that the processes that I do with people is, as they're thinking about, well, I'm not good enough, for example, and it triggers all these memories and feelings that go way back when. So one of the ways that you can cause that to change is by causing another burst, a second burst of acetylcholine. So that cognition comes together with a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine, and that's what binds it together. So you can cause another burst of acetylcholine, and I wrote my doctoral dissertation on this, so I'm pretty informed about it. And so you can start doing some tapping. So if I tap on the right side of my body, it's causing an activation on the left side of the brain. Or if I tap on the left side of the brain, it's causing an activation on the right side. So this counterproduction here of causing that belief, now you're causing that second burst of acetylcholine. So it disengages the emotion. Now, it may not get rid of the memory, but now it's going to form a new cognition. So maybe you put a new cognition in there of I am powerful. And I'm not giving direct examples here, but just so you get the the feel of what happens here. And so by being able to do that, it now causes a second burst of acetylcholine. And so now you have the new experience and you give it new meaning and you add some emotion to that. And now it's get bound together with that acetylcholine. So now every time something comes up, the I'm not good enough is not going to fire. It's going to be the new one that you put in there. That's the one that fires off. And so this is how we're able to produce more of who we want to be and understanding what our subconscious belief patterns, what they are and what they do and don't do. And so there's another process that I worked, with Rob Williams back when I was working with Bruce Lipton and Rob Williams. And we did about 125 studies on changing people's subconscious belief patterns and wrote some papers and, did a couple of shows on Gaia TV and things like that about this kind of process.
I have a friend, he's a client of mine that talked about, when I interviewed him on my show, he talked about seeing Dr. Bob Proctor, thank you. And Bob Proctor talked about doing these affirmations. The one that he really hung on to is, I am so happy and grateful now that money comes to me in increasing quantities from multiple sources on a continuous basis. And so, he was talking about this and he's like, dude, I went from not being able to pay my bills, barely surviving, to now he's doing $20+ million a year in business. And he said, he goes, I don't know how many times I said that affirmation, but I said it. He goes, I would be on a 4-hour drive to go visit a car dealer. And I would say that so many times that I like, he goes, my voice would be hoarse by the time he's like 20, 30,000 times. He goes, it works. I'm telling you, it works. So is that the answer?
Well, yeah, you look at the science behind this. And so as he's using that affirmation again and again and again, it's kind of the long way around to do it, but it does work. And there are, many millions of examples of people who have used that. But let's look at it again. So what is a subconscious belief? It is a thought you have over and over and over again. It gets rooted in your subconscious. That becomes the rule. So as he's doing that and causing those things, triggering it again and again and again, it gets part of the subconscious belief, and now you're changing your belief pattern. It's just, I have a faster way of doing it. That happens in there. Yeah. So Greg Reed used to do this, at his Secret Knock, and he would have me. He wrote the foreword to my books and stuff, and I've known Greg for many, many years. Great guy. And
great guy. He's been on the show. Yeah.
So when I would come to Secret Knock, and they're, hey, Lisa, hi.
Lisa?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was on her show just recently. So
I love Lisa. She's amazing.
Yeah. So anyway, he had me on there, and I would do what I call brain magic from the stage. So they would pick somebody out of the audience. We'd bring them up on stage, put the brain cap on, and project it up on a 30-foot screen. And I would change their subconscious beliefs, and they could watch it actually happen. And even to this day, it's really funny. I was watching my friend Bruce Lipton's new series on Gaia TV and stuff. And I'm watching an episode, and he's talking about this guy that puts a brain cap on somebody's head and then changes their belief. And his name is Jeffrey Fannin. And I'm sitting there just cracking me up doing that. But if you go to the science of this, there are many modalities, many methods of how to actually get there, and so that's why I have programs where I can work with people anywhere in the world, and there's a relationship, between our cellular function. And Bruce will tell you this about that we have to have the right environment for our cells in order to function. And so one of the videos that's floating around out there, or that I provide for people, is I was working with this young man that had a lot of issues with focus and concentration. And so I did a traditional brain map with him, And then because I learned about these activators, NRF1, NRF2, Sherry just walked in. Yeah, come on.
Hello.
Hey, Sherry.
We're having a party.
We're having a party.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So good to see you, sweetie.
You too, honey.
Yeah. So anyway, to get to the story there, she is quite distracting.
Yeah.
So anyway, you go back to the science of this and how to do it once you learn it. It's not that I have any magic. We just look at the whole psychology and the physiognomy of this so that I train people and teach people how to do this on their own because really they don't need me other than to teach them how to do this, or they can take the affirmations, or they could use something like tapping or EFT. But there's a little bit more to that story, whether you're using the pulse points or things like that, or that would take a longer method of discussion here, and why I work with people all around the world. So, I was starting to talk about the relationship with people around the world. So I have these kits that I'm able to send out to people where they poke their finger, put a couple of drops of blood on a card. We send it into the lab, and then they take a 10 or 15 minute online cognitive test so we can see what their brain is actually doing. And then also looking at coherence. I was starting to tell you about this young man that when I was working with him and did his brain map and show this, how messy it is in the beginning, and then put him on these activators that open up these pathways, NRF1, NRF2, and that's another discussion for another day.
So,
but 12 days later, I took another brain map and saw something that I did not expect. In 25 years of doing this, I never saw this. And everything was looking pretty normal. And so I thought, well, maybe it's a problem with the data, with the equipment, with the cap. All of this checked out. And then I started looking at it from a quantum physics point of view. So I won't try and get too geeky here with you. But anyway, as I looked at that and looked at the coherence in his brain before, and then what it did is it opens up these pathways. So we go back to what Bruce Lipton is talking about. You have to have the right environment for your cells. And so as you have that right environment for your cells, now they can function normally. So what needs to happen is you have to have, the cells have to be dynamic. In other words, they have to have that coherence in order to transfer energy and information from one cell to the next. And so these pathways got opened up. Now, it immediately didn't take care of his focus and concentration issues. But at the beginning, the parents were getting 2 and 3 calls a day from the school. He's acting out. He's not bringing in his homework. He's being belligerent. All the things that we see with people who have problems with focus and concentration. Then we put him on these activators and then allowed to be on that for 12 days, did another brain map. And that's when I saw the difference and could see the difference in coherence. And so why I start working with people in increasing their coherence. So one of the things that we look at with the equipment is called GDV, gas discharge visualization. And so what they do is they put their finger down on the camera lens. It shoots a 10 millivolt charge into their finger. And that's so small you don't even feel it. Causes the discharge. So we see the biophotonic energy. And so we can see what's happening in the energy field, how the energy around the different organs and systems of the body are happening, and also the chakras. And so the heart chakra is the most important for developing coherence. And that's what I saw in some of these research studies that I did with people. And so using the heart math, I've been a certified trainer for heart math for many years, I think since 2016 or something. But wow. Training people how to increase their coherence and opening up their pathways with these, people call them supplements, but they're really activators. And that's a much longer story for a different time about how we do that. But it is possible. So when you look at everything as a whole, we as human beings can do really amazing things. So for the last 2 years, I've been working with this group called Vibra Vision, VIBRAVISION. And so they can put bandages over their eyes and then a blindfold on top of that. They can drive go-karts. You can drop colored beanbags in their hand. They can tell you what color they are. They can read from a book. You can give them a greeting card that's in an envelope and they can read it to you. So we have the capability of doing amazing things. So in a couple of months, there's a movie out there that just astonished me, and I didn't know about it. It's called Superhuman, Making the Invisible Visible, and you get it on Vimeo or on Amazon or somewhere. And it's really amazing. And they go through and they start talking about this. So a couple of scientists in the movie and myself, and I think we're doing it in January, are going to do this special episode of Superhuman to talk about how we as human beings, how we can go to higher states of consciousness, how we can use our brain in ways that people think are just a miracle. But when you look at the physiology and you look at meditation and you look at how to work with these energies that are in, because really we are energy beings, we are vibrational beings living in a vibrational universe. And so this is about being able to use this whole theory of quantum physics to our benefit. And so that's what happens in being able to change our vibration.
So, you know, I find it interesting. I think I told you when you and I talked on the phone that, you know, I'm a recovered alcoholic with 18 years sober. And after about 1 year of sobriety, somebody said to me, you should consider meditation. And immediately all of my defense mechanisms kicked in, and I said, that's not biblical. That Jesus wouldn't let, you know. And I was like, I got into all this dogma, and I can remember finally being convinced that maybe it would help my squirrel brain. And so I've meditated every single morning of my life for the last 17 years. And I continue. I'll be late for a meeting before I miss that. And so
I'm with you on that. I do the same thing.
Yeah.
And there's lots of different types of meditation.
Right.
And so there probably isn't a type of meditation that I haven't worked with and,
right.
you know, have graphics of things like that. So again, it's learning the concept, learning the physics and the universal laws that are there,
yep.
You know, and working with people.
I think, you know, I mean, I remember seeing Dr. Joe on What the Bleep Do We Know, and he talked, I think it was him that talked, or somebody talked about the water, turning the water into crystal clear and making it dirty.
Yeah,
and
about Maru Matsumoto.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he, I have some of his books and have looked at that and looking at how the crystals change. And we're really talking about the vibration. And I write in my books about the solfeggio frequencies. And a lot of people haven't heard of those. If you look them up and go to YouTube or whatever, you can see those. But you don't really know whether you're getting the right frequency. So I wrote a chapter in the book about this and talking about when we look at something like 528 hertz, which is akin to unconditional love. So back in the 3rd century, when the Gregorian monks were using these chants, they realized that these vibrations of the chants were causing emotions in people. So somewhere along the line, they began to change the method of how they tune musical instruments. So normally 528 hertz would be like the middle C on a piano. So then as they changed this way of tuning the musical instrument, they found that what they were getting was 512 hertz instead of 528 hertz. So essentially it was causing a shift in the frequencies. So we know that these things are very powerful. They use it today, you know, in movies, and, you know, when you hear the dreaded music and, you know, So you start to have the feelings. It's just like the song. It takes you way back when, and you have feelings and things like that about that. So what you're doing is you're training your brain and your body to how to do these. So in 2015, I did a study on this, and we went to a sound lab and had them produce the correct frequencies for us. And so those are the ones I work with people nowadays on how, so that they can get rid of, we know energy healing, and so I also did a study on energy healing. I wanted to know, how does energy healing work? And so we did a study, and it took us a year to do the study and a year to break down the data and another year to present it. And so we had 60 known energy healers in this study, and we were able to measure the energy. One was a receiver and one was a giver. And so they were doing this process called the bars. And it's about having 32 points on the head and getting the energy to flow through the chakra centers. And that's part of the healing process. So I wrote a big paper. I put the results of that study in my book, so people can look at that and see, what is the science behind some of this stuff. And we know that it really does work. And so it's about whatever modality that you are interested in, that we have, the science that is out there, and now it's coming together. People like Bruce and Joe and other people are beginning to explain, the science and the way to do this. And so we are coming together in communities where people are helping other people. And I think that's the key issue here is so it's not so important modality, but you understand the science and then how to utilize these within yourself. And so being able to increase the coherence, whatever it is. And that's why I have the 8-week course that I walk people through on how to measure this stuff, with scientific measurements, and then how to utilize it in their own life.
I think, and I love everything you're talking about, and I can't wait to dig into some of your material. The self-help, I wrote a book called Walls of Wisdom, Turning Pain into Profit. And I put it in the self-help category on Amazon. Wow, what a competitor. It's the largest category on Amazon. And so, I find it fascinating that, because I've been to, I've never been to a Tony Robbins seminar, although his book changed me significantly 30 years ago. But people go to these seminars, they get all fired up and rah, 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 and walking on coals and doing all this stuff. And then they get home and 6 weeks later, they're back in the same patterns that they were prior to going to the rah, rah seminar. And so that's why the self-help industry is so massively huge. And so you're saying, it sounds like you're saying that I can skip the seminar, attend your stuff, dig into the science behind why I'm screwed up or what, or things aren't going the way I want them to go, or whatever. You're saying that there's a scientific approach to removing these blocks, and you do that.
Well, more than that, and I put this in the book. It's called our point of attraction. So we have all of these emotions. And so the higher, faster frequencies are like love, enjoyment, enthusiasm, things like that. And the lower ones are fear, depression, anger, things like that. So let's take worry as an example. Let's suppose that a person worries a lot. And we go back to that theory of, as you worry, what your thoughts that you have over and over and over again are getting rooted in your subconscious belief. What we know about that is that if a person that worries a lot, can I go from that to enthusiasm? Well, the answer is yes, but they cannot sustain it because it's part of their root system. So they go up to from worry to enthusiasm, and they feel the enthusiasm, but then they drop right back down. So in this list that I have, and you can read a lot of different authors on it's not so much what the numbers are, but you can go. Most people don't go from what their normal thinking pattern is to more than 5 categories in either direction. So yeah, they can manufacture the enthusiasm, the love, that sort of thing, but they cannot sustain it. And so that's why 2 weeks after the seminar, you get all pumped up. You go back because your thinking is right back where it was. It never left.
Right. So you're saying there's a way to replace it.
Well,
Remove
sure.
it,
Everybody has that ability. Yeah, everybody has that ability to replace that. And so we go back to, let's get rid of the subconscious beliefs that aren't working for you. Well, how do I know what those are? Look at your behavior. I'm doing this and I don't want to be doing that. So then you get rid of that one and replace it with a new cognition of the one that you do want. And then that's the one that fires. And that's the one when you do your morning routine and you do, things like meditation and how you can open up. Let me give you a small, we have a couple minutes to do a small example here. So when we look at a thought and it's going to have a particular vibrational pattern and it's going to vibrate. So whether it's a wanted thought or an unwanted thought, it doesn't matter. If you continue to have that thought for 17 seconds, other energy that is like that or other thoughts are going to be attracted to it. Now, when they come together, that energy, and I show this in some of the videos that I've produced, the apex of that energy, and they come together, that energy is going to come together and join. It's called a constructive interference pattern. So now if you hold that for 16, 17 seconds, it has now amassed enough energy where it's not just affecting the energy matter, but now it's got enough energy, it can affect particle matter. And if people want to understand that a little bit more, all you have to do is go on YouTube and look at a double slit experiment. And it kind of explains how those particles change from energy matter to particle matter, but that's how we attract what it is. That's how we create our own reality. So a lot of people are putting out a wanted thought, then an unwanted thought, then a wanted thought. So you're putting resistance into the field, and so you have to get into the receptive zone in order to be able to understand how do I keep that momentum? How do I keep that energy building in order to attract what it is that I do want? And everybody has this ability. It's just a lot of people don't understand that why they keep going on this roller coaster ride. If sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And that's part of our physical being in being able to change our subconscious beliefs and be able to begin to master some of the science that has been here for as long as man has been here.
Wow. So can you say that all again in layman's terms? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, sure. Hire me as a coach and I'll explain it in amazing detail.
I love that. I absolutely think that everybody watching needs how would somebody get involved in your stuff and get in touch with you, get your courses? What's a website address?
Yeah, Ken, thank you very much for allowing me to do that. So I have a special gift for your audience here, and they can go on my website, thoughtgenius.com, and they can download the 5 keys to commanding the power of thoughts. And there are a number of other gifts that are there, and they could, register for courses and things that we're doing and get in touch with us. And so once they register there, then they will get periodic notifications of different courses, the things that Sherry and I are putting together. It's called Moment to Moment, how we make decisions from moment to moment, how we live our lives. And it's about being present in the moment. You can be present in the moment, and be there. But if you've got, a really crappy subconscious belief patterns, you're going to have to work a lot harder than everybody else in order to get there. So there's a way to deal with that. So we're going to have some shows on moment to moment and courses and things like that that are currently being put together and will be available to anybody. So they can go and register. And we have a book there called Food for Thought that Sherry and I wrote. And it talked about these things and some of the myths that we subscribe to and, what this is all about.
So Laura asks, are there ways people can increase ACH naturally? This would be good to know.
Well, of course. I mean, it's a natural process anyway. So if you're trying to increase your acetylcholine, the tapping really is what does it. So it's the bilateral stimulation of the hemispheres of the brain. So when I was writing my doctoral dissertation, and that's why, so on the left side of my brain, if I'm tapping on the right side of my body, it's causing that stimulation in the left hemisphere. And the same thing on the other side, if I'm tapping on the right side, it is dealing with the other side of my brain. So by going back and forth through the corpus callosum of transferring energy and information back and forth, this is what causes that second burst of acetylcholine to bind the new subconscious belief together. So that's why when people are just doing affirmations, if they haven't done them long enough, it's not created the neural pathway that is going to be able to evaluate and to function within your own brain. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about the seminars he's had that, and in one of his books, I listened to his book. He talks about some lady in a wheelchair came in, she was in a wheelchair, and by the time she left, she was walking out of the seminar without the wheelchair. How's that even possible?
They've shown on YouTube, like where people were getting around and doing chanting. I think this happened in China, and this person had a tumor, and they had it hooked up to a machine where you could see the tumor, and over a matter of minutes, that tumor shrank. We had people who had one gentleman who came and was able to do some things, and he had a cancer, and he went after the event, went back to the MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston to have a new review, and they could find no evidence of the cancer there. And so we've seen that. We've worked with a lot of people who've had really amazing experiences. And so this is about, understanding the physiology and how natural healing works. A lot of it is that we are just out of balance. So maybe our cells are out of balance, or our energy, our vibrations are out of balance, our thoughts are out of balance, things like that. So really depends on how far down the rabbit hole you want to go.
Well, I mean, this is your life. Like it's for anybody watching, right? This is your life. Now would be a good time to fix it. I would think, right?
Yeah. Well, and it's not like you have to have some special incantation and chant magic words and stuff like that. Everybody has the ability. It's only a question of whether we'll use the ability. Like I was talking about the Vibra Vision. If you want to go on YouTube and look up Vibra Vision, VIBRAVISION, and look at some of those amazing videos. And so I've been able to brain map a lot of those people and how they do it. And we're looking at, how can you train your brain to actually do some of these amazing things. So it's not that these people are amazing. They are amazing when we see this and we think these are miracle elements of what goes on. We look at when the disciples were talking to Christ and say, Master, how do you do all of these miracles? And he said, all of these things that you've seen me do, you can do and more. And so science is now catching up to a lot of that stuff. And we're beginning to see and understand how the universe works, how we as participants in that universe, how that works. We are all connected. And so vibration, you look at what Einstein said and what Nikola Tesla said about, the energy of the universe, and that we can connect to that. And we are already connected to that. Most of it is just learning how to do that. So I think we're entering this new era, this new transition, and maybe this is a gift from the COVID virus for all of us, where we're able to go more inward. Who am I? What am I doing? And who are the people around me that I care about? And how do I deal with some of this stuff? So we're not so caught up in all of the distractions, the noise that's going on around us, and our phones and the interruptions on our computer. And we're actually training our brain to dumb ourselves down when we're doing that. Now, these are great tools, and we need those tools in the mobile world that we live in, but they don't have to rule your life. And so if you understand, what you're looking at, what you're dealing with, you could use them as a tool and not, spend your whole lifetime just sitting there. You go into a restaurant back in the days when you could go into a restaurant, and what do you see? People sitting around, a bunch of people or families. What are they doing? They're playing with their phone. Is it that important? But we train our brains to become distracted. And when we're not distracted by something, we will manufacture the distraction, in order to feel what's normal. It's kind of like, if I said, fold your arms, Ken, and you folded your arms. And then I said, okay, now reverse that, fold them in a different way. Which way is the right? Yeah,
I don't even know how to do it.
Yeah. Well, and the answer to that is both of them are right. Which one feels normal? So we're going to go to what feels normal, the subconscious belief patterns that we have that are going on in the brain. And that's what so can you master these things? And that's what Tony Robbins has been all these years trying to teach people, what Bruce Lipton does, what Joe Dispenza does, what all these people who teach this are trying to teach people, and why they're so effective in the things that they do is because they understand the basis of it.
Wow. This has been absolutely a powerful interview. I first off, I have your website scrolling across the bottom. My wife said that she already went over and signed up, and I mean, we build websites for a living, and my wife is giving you props, saying there's so much great stuff on your website. So
that's great, because I built it.
Good job.
Yeah.
Good job.
It took me years. It took me years to do that. And then I also had somebody helping me now to build the funnel, so when people register, we can, start sending out and keeping them in contact with, podcasts and different things that we're doing.
So the last question I always ask everyone is, what do you think, in your opinion, holds people back from success and freedom and happiness in life?
Themselves, they're afraid to make a choice. And I think I learned that what a lot of people don't know is just a little bit over a year ago, I had a stroke. Now, I never saw this coming. I was working with Vibravision on Zoom the night before. I woke up in the middle of the night. I couldn't open and close my left hand, and I couldn't speak. And in that moment, there was so much terror that I knew my life had changed forever. But because I know how to do what I know how to do, I was able to do some of those things for myself. I had to, they took me to the hospital, and I had to sit there and practice, because the words that were forming in my brain were not the ones coming out of my mouth. And so as I kept practicing for a while, I could make myself understood, and then called 911. They took me to the hospital. They kept me there for 2 days, kind of stabilized things, and they sent me to a rehabilitation hospital. And I was there for only 12 days. And it's because of many of these things that I do and the activators and stuff that I talk about that I'm alive today because of that. And so being able to get my cells back, I had to learn to speak. I had to learn to swallow. I had to learn to hold a pencil, to do dexterous things that I couldn't do before. And that was a real wake-up call for me, because I wasn't doing a good job of taking care of myself, going here and there and everywhere, and just not taking care of myself, not doing what I was teaching other people. I wasn't doing it in earnest for myself. So I think that was the universe's way of saying, all right, buddy, let's see how good you really are.
Wow.
And so
Wow.
now I have a great conviction of what that is and what I needed to change for myself. And I think you'll find that a lot of people who are very powerful teachers have had, you probably have heard Dr. Joe's story and other people, have all had stories like that in their life that were kind of a wake-up call. And then you started to get really serious about using these universal laws and changing your habits, changing the way that you think, changing all of these different things so that you can be a different person. And I'm sure you've heard stories like this again and again and again of people who have had very difficult circumstances. And those are just learning experiences for us to decide, who do I want to be and how do I want to get there? You know, whether you're willing to. And so one of the basic principles of that, we have to know what we don't want in order to do to get what we do want. So we have to use our free will, our free choice, in order to choose what we do want. Otherwise, we're going to create our reality by default.
Wow. Wow. So powerful. Dr. Jeffrey Fannin, I got to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much. Your wisdom is unbelievable. Everybody watching, go to thoughtgenius.com, get signed up for whatever he's selling, or he has gifts. You're giving it away, something for free. Go sign up and go to thoughtgenius.com, which I love that website domain name, by the way.
That came to me in a meditation. I was meditating one day, trying to figure out what I was going to do, and that name just popped into my head.
That's beautiful. I love that. Thank you so much. Don't hang up on me, though. If you would hang on real quick, I'm going to end this. Thank you to everyone who's been on here. If you shared this out, there's extra points for you somewhere in life. If you didn't share it out, you're screwed. I'm kidding. Thank you, guys. Appreciate everything. Dr. Jeffrey, thank you so much. I appreciate you. And you guys have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks, Ken.